Namaskar. Welcome to this special session. This is coming on channel 2 and also on Facebook. What is happening in Venezuela? Is Maduro out, or is he continuing to have his grip? Because a lot of news is swirling around in YouTube and other social media channels that a coup has been averted. Has it? Well, what led up to this? Why is Trump so pissed with the Venezuelan president? Well, we have a small story to tell you. This is something that has to go back a few years because it didn't start today. And if you have read my book, Who Painted My State Purple? Just let me bring it up. If you have seen this book, or if you have read this book, Who Painted My State Purple, you will know the background of what happened in Venezuela. This goes back to the time of Hugo Chavez, and what happened was Venezuela found oil, but it wasn't just that. They basically squandered the dividend that came from the oil and paid their population, and it was like a dividend that, and there was so much money given that people stopped working. And then when the oil well started running out, well, people were not used to getting back to work. There were riots on the streets. But Hugo Chavez had a personal popularity, and then he fell sick. I think he died of cancer hiding in Cuba. Well, hiding or recuperating in Cuba, whichever way you want to think of it. Maybe he returned back to Venezuela. My memory is not very clear about how Hugo Chavez died. But then Maduro came in. But by this time, that is, we are talking about 2017 time frame, there was so much debt owed by Venezuela to many people. What was the amount we are talking about? Venezuela owed about $154 billion, B as in boy, billion dollars, to a group of people, Wall Street bankers, as well as Russia. Then in 2019, the United States cut off all diplomatic relations with Venezuela, basically making them some like a pariah, because they started putting sanctions. And by the time the sanctions were all put, 99% of legal income that Venezuela could get from its oil sales was not possible. Then how did that country survive? As a matter of fact, it's doing okay now. It's not like it's in a grip of a big mess or something, but it seems to be okay. How did that happen? All this and more we are going to talk about here. So after 2019 clamped down on Venezuela, US thought that they will be down to their knees and that they will want to sit down and negotiate a deal. But that's not what happened. Stepped in China. China gave a lot of guarantees to Venezuela that they will find an alternate way to take oil from Venezuela and keep the country going. Well, they didn't give the same kind of subsidies that Hugo Chavez was able to give the people, but they did bring some money in. But any deal with China is a bad deal. We all know that. In the end, it's just as bad, or if not worse, than anything else that others do. So right now, the story is that Venezuela owes about $100 billion. Numbers vary, but it is somewhere between 100 billion or a little bit less. But this is a deal where they get the money and they swap it with oil. Guess who else is doing the same thing with China? Iran. So you see the network forming here. Basically, China has really pissed US off, saying that by coming to their sphere of influence, this is something from the 1820 Act that they have, or some sort of a doctrine, Monroe Doctrine it's called, that this is United States sphere of influence. Nobody else shall come here. They will dominate. Well, China has come in. They told Venezuela, don't worry, we will take care of you. And now, lo and behold, Venezuela finds itself in debt of close to $100 billion with a combination of Russia and China. So the 154 billion also, there is some money owed to Russia. And now the recent past, what has happened, about a total of 100 billion is owed between China and Russia. My guess is these numbers will never be exact, but we know billions are owed. So Venezuela owes billions to China, it owes billions to Wall Street, it owes billions to Russia. Now what has happened is, while all this was going on, Maduro went and hired, of all people, Rothschild and company to set straight their finances in April 2024, April 24th, 2024 to be exact. So Rothschild has been working with Venezuela to come up with a plan that would help them get out of this isolation and join the mainstream. Then you might ask, why then is Trump fighting Venezuela? Why does Trump want Maduro out? And he doesn't want the vice president to succeed. He says all of these people are corrupt. Okay, so there is that story going on. Trump wants Maduro out, Nicolas Maduro out. I'm sorry about this. Maduro out. Then the leader of opposition is on her way to Oslo, Norway, to collect the Nobel Peace Prize. And some say that she might never return back to Venezuela, that she might just live in exile. So that's another story going. So you have the story that Trump wants Maduro out. Then you have the leader of opposition going to Europe to collect her Nobel Peace Prize. And US is firing away at Venezuelan boats saying that they are carrying fentanyl. How did fentanyl come into the picture? So somewhere you have to connect the dots here, that perhaps China is not just giving money to Venezuela, but perhaps it's also saying, here, take these drugs, you sell this thing and you make money off of it. That way they can wash their hands off of it and say, we didn't send this thing, it is from Venezuela, you go deal with them. So that is the other story doing the round. So they have three things going on. But why is Trump saying enough is enough? Well, I have a small infographic to talk to you about what is happening, because in all these things there is also claims of a rigged election. That's the other thing. So Venezuela is in big turmoil right now. We don't know if there's a coup or not. Maduro is making a lot of tall statements. Whether he's going to be able to do it or not is another day, another question. But let me just tell you what is happening in the last few days. Then I'll come back and tell you what I think happened and why Trump is doing what he is doing. Because there's always a method to Trump's madness. It's just that we don't know. But once you start looking at it patiently, you will get the idea what exactly he wants to do. So the US-Venezuela crisis. What happened? In July 2024, there was an election and President Nicolas Maduro claimed victory, but this was widely contested. People said that this was rigged. By the way, Hugo Chavez also faced a lot of claims of rigging when he came back to power. So this is not something that is new. And again, there is EVM fraud, that sort of stuff. You'll have to read my book, Who Painted My State Purple, to understand what are all the different things that took place during Hugo Chavez's time. By the way, this is a book of fiction, so I'm not going to name him, but the story is very, very close to being the truth. Okay, so the opposition leaders and the US have denounced the results as fraud, sparking protests and setting the stage for a future conflict. So now what we have is the future conflict. Now in January 2025, Maduro crowns himself the president of Venezuela. The opposition and international observers label this the consummation of a coup, citing a lack of legitimacy. The US renews its refusal to recognize the government. As a matter of fact, if memory serves me right, I don't think United States has ever recognized Maduro's government in Venezuela. But then United States is also doing weird things. They did not recognize, they did not congratulate Narendra Modi for 2 or 3 days after the election results came in 2024. What was going on? What were they thinking will happen in that 48, 72 hours, right? Okay, in August 2025, the United States started deploying Navy, close to 4,500 personnel in the Caribbean. And this is not only, that's not all, they also refurbished their bases in Puerto Rico, signaling a shift from diplomatic to military pressure. So Then what happened? In September to November timeframe, there were lethal maritime strikes, over 20 strikes on Venezuelan vessels alleged to be trafficking drugs. Now, Trump declares Venezuelan airspace as closed, intensifying fears of an invasion. What does that mean? That means that if Russia or China start supplying, weapons or armory or whatever via air, those things are closed off. And I think they are also patrolling the seas around Venezuela to try and prevent them from getting any help from China and Russia. Not that China and Russia want to do it. It is widely believed that Russia and US have agreed that Russia will not interfere in US's sphere of influence and vice versa, which is why perhaps US is slowly pulling itself out of the conflict in Ukraine. Now, what is happening is, after that, in December, there is an imminent threat of standoff. The US threatens land strikes and decapitation of the leadership. Congress attempts to pass war powers resolutions to prevent full-scale war. They still want to contain it. Right now, there are 20 plus maritime strikes and 4,500 US personnel have been deployed there. So this part we all know. Now let's try and connect the dots. Is Trump doing all this to Maduro because he's trying to help perhaps some of his benefactors to whom Venezuela owes a lot of money? And for that, what Trump wants to do is to bring in a US-friendly government, recognize it, and then start collecting all the back money owed. By the way, Chevron has been using or has been operational in Venezuela, and they are pumping out close to 900,000 barrels a day. But the Venezuelan government used to pump close to 3 million barrels a day. So the numbers are lower, and also it is believed that some of the oil tanks, oil fields, it is not fields, it's actually underwater, most of it, those are drying up. And there is another thing that's coming up. Venezuela wants to fight with Guyana because they are neighbors in some places, claiming that on the ocean it's actually Venezuelan oil and not Guyanese oil. So that's another thing that is going on. That's a story that is playing on a parallel track. So Trump could be, doing some favors for people who supported him to become president, number one. Second, Trump could be using or showcasing these 20 strikes as a national emergency situation, saying that these guys are peddling drugs and these drugs are being brought into United States, and therefore US is in a state of emergency as far as battling the drugs is concerned, and therefore US has the power to put tariffs, because the Supreme Court of United States, SCOTUS, is also looking at the legitimacy of the tariffs. So between trying to collect dues for the people whom Venezuela owes money, bankers, and also his own things to try and keep the tariff train going, Trump somewhere thinks that he needs to do something. Thirdly, Trump is not happy, I'm sure, and nobody in US will be happy, that that China has penetrated their sphere of influence. Today Venezuela, tomorrow it could be Peru, it could be also Argentina, it could be Brazil. Already Brazil owes close to $3.2 billion to China, 3.2 or 3.6, somewhere in that ballpark. So does South Africa. So does South Africa. So these are all things that are going on, and we don't know which is the main reason. Trump also feels that by controlling the oil from Venezuela, he can counter Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So Kingdom of Saudi Arabia also has a challenge on its hands. Which one it is, we will know in a short while, in a few weeks or months, hopefully. But you see what is happening. One country, but so many players, so many different angles, and so many things that can go wrong here. We'll wait and see how this goes. I don't have any other things to add, and I'm seeing if there are any questions. No, there are no questions, and that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.